in the early 2000s, specifically for me when I would travel to Premier Gourmet in Buffalo and buy all these really aged American barley wines and American style West Coast IPAs that by the time we got them, the hops were kind of faded, but they have this particular smell and aroma that is very nostalgic to me. And I really wanted to, drink a beer that reminded us of why we started doing this 2,000 brews ago. And that's the reasoning behind this particular beer, the Lone Wine.
Yeah, it's exciting on a variety of different levels, not the least of which obviously is the nostalgia in the 2000th beer that you guys have made. To be able to brew that many for that long at that quality that you guys have is incredible. But the idea of cranking it up the way that you have here to 11.2, I'm sure that that's the first thing that most, if not all, people ask you about when this specific drink comes up in conversation, no?
Yes, it does hit like 11.2. It packs a punch, but I mean, at the same time, it's remarkably easy to drink. What we kind of kept the malt, like sometimes barley ones can be exceedingly heavy, like tons of barley and malt sweetness. We didn't want that. What we were going for was more of like an amped up version of Lone Pine with more malt body, but still the drinkability. And we did a long boil on this, which creates some more caramel flavors and a little bit of deeper, richer color. And again, we let the hops age out. So you get like this fruity, it's still the pininess, but it's like this fruitiness to it with a bigger malt center. And pretty excited about how it turned out. It's pretty close to exactly what I wanted to see when we did it.
Well, I have my Sawdust City IPA glass. Is this acceptable to drink a Lone Wine in? I guess I don't have the big, beautiful glass that you have there, but.
Yeah, this is a big snifter that I've been saving for such an occasion. An old brewer of mine, Spinny, who I actually was visiting yesterday to do a collab, we used to buy bigger and bigger and bigger snifters. I have like this 2-liter snifter sitting on top of a cupboard that we used to drink. It's comically large, but like this one I think is perfect for this. I haven't used it in a very long time, so figured I'd break out this for today.
All right, perfect. Well, it is a special occasion for us here, so let's crack these bad boys open. Again, sawdustcitybeer.com is where you can go. Oh man, even cracking it, you can like the smell of the pininess of the Lone Pine kind of comes through just by cracking this thing open. But tell me for a second here as we pour and we see this color. You mentioned the long boil process that gets a little bit more of that caramel kind of into it. Where else do you use that process? Like what other types of beers would you kind of throw that in as part of the brewing process?
You're looking at things that are a little bit more malt forward, a Bock or a Doppelbock. We did the same thing with that. We're going to be doing that again. We're having a collab coming up with our friends at Muddy York Brewing in Toronto. We're going to be doing a wee heavy, and with a wee heavy, it's a simple malt body, but then you just boil it for a really long time, and it just creates. It's like if you cooked sugar in a pot for a long time, you get caramelization. That's exactly what it is.
Sam, how the hell is that 11.2%?
Yeah, right?
I'm not even being cheesy. I'm not being like salesman guy. I've had a lot of beers before that are 7% where you're like, whoa, man, that's a little overwhelming as soon as you taste it. That is crazy.
Yeah, it's still very drinkable, and that's the problem. Therein lies the problem sometimes.
Oh man, that's incredible. I honestly can't believe that, but it does have, like you say, some of the sweetness and the maltiness and all the things that you were kind of mentioning off the top, but you can tell it still has Lone Pine at heart, which is really interesting that it still comes through as that original Lone Pine, smack you across the face with the pine branch from the video that you guys did way back when for sawdustcitybeer.com introducing that beer. But it's like, yeah, to have the heart and the essence of the original, but to create something completely different that's amazing, man. I love, again, I've only had one sip, but I just love the idea and how this has turned out based on what you wanted it to be. That's so cool.
Yeah, it was a fun project. Like, we started talking about doing a barley wine, and then I looked at some of the ones that like I said, we wanted to hit that like early 2000s particular flavor aroma profile. But some of the beers that we looked at were barley wines from Sierra Nevada, the Bigfoot. And, when I was researching, I was looking at Ale Smith from San Diego, a lot of West Coast inspiration. And, those were the guys that I was drinking in the early 2000s when we were, coming up with Sawdust City and where we were going to go. So I wanted to do something sort of tip of the cap to them. And when we were talking about this before, the name wasn't there. The beer was, and then the name was just sitting there in the ether until we finally saw it and plucked it out of the air. Like, of course, that's exactly what it's supposed to be. And, I'm really happy how it turned out. And, 2,000 brews is something that we're excited that we were able to attain and continue to do. And we just passed our 7th anniversary. And we have a special party coming up in Toronto on November 18th that will celebrate our 10th anniversary of the release of our first beer. Wow. So that's going to be another big one. We got another big beer planned for that. More information on that later, but we'll talk now we have to deal with this 11 too. It's good for the first couple of sips, then it'll build, and then in about an hour, you're like, man, it's 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, and I'm super tired.
Well, yeah, I think that's to be expected. The thing, I always say about this, as somebody who's gone to a lot of football games and been to a lot of tailgates, the only people who get themselves in trouble with the ABV of a certain drink is those who don't know how to handle certain ABVs. Like, it's because the reality is that if you give me a bunch of 3% beers, well, yeah, you can do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. There's a larger room for error, I guess, if you want to call it that. You're just enjoying and socially having. And then if you're having like 6 to 7 to 8s kind of in there, if you end up running yourself into trouble with an 11-2, it's because you don't understand how damn powerful an 11-2 is. Like, that's on you.
Yeah. You have to treat it with respect, because 11%, it will catch up. I mean, the problem that I find is you drink it at the same speed.
Yeah.
And you're like, whatever it is. So you kind of have to step back a second and be like, wait. And then don't maybe have another one immediately after. Give yourself a pause and let the warming alcohol sort of work its way through your blood. And then you will realize, oh yeah, I don't need one right now. Yes. I can wait a second.
And again, having that self-realization, I think, is what I have failed to see from people sometimes at tailgates, where it's like that idea of maybe I don't need one right now because the last one was so damn good. But what I do love about it too is because it's a higher percentage and it has all this different characteristics of malt and flavor, and is that it does come off as something that you do want to drink very slowly. And that doesn't even have to do with the actual ABV and the percentage. It's the fact that every sip is a little bit different because it's so unique. And I love that about beers, especially craft beers, because I know we've talked about this before, Sam, but the idea that you would have a beautiful craft beer like this, that so much work has been put into, and you'd shotgun it down your throat as fast as possible to get hammered off of it. It's like, that's not the point of Sawdust City beer.
Yeah, this is it's a complex beer. There's a lot going on. You get that, the caramel maltiness, you get the hoppy pininess and that level of fruitiness. And when I was talking earlier about taking it out of the fridge a little bit early to let it warm up, the colder you have a beer, the more it dumbs down the flavor. So if you ever get to a bar and it's got the Sub-Zero, that means they don't want you to taste that beer at all. All you're doing is that's for shotgunning.
Yeah.
But when you have a beer that you want to warm up a little bit, maybe 6 to 8 degrees Celsius, this is allowing those aromas and flavors to kind of come to life. And this isn't a cold one you have after a game. This is you sit down and you contemplate, life and all the you can solve all the mysteries of the world and the universe over a glass of beer.
I do love the impersonation that you slipped into without realizing it, because when you said Sub-Zero, you were very clearly doing a guy who loves to drink all of the big generic, and I love, because I do the same thing sometimes when I'm impersonating people who are complaining on Twitter, and I go into a high pitched voice, and it's like, why do I do that? Like, oh yeah, because that's how I imagine them in my mind. But yeah, the guy who sits at the bar at a main chain restaurant, if you will, and points at the Sub-Zero and says, "Give me the cold one." It's like, yeah, that's extremely different than what you're experiencing here. But the temperature variation, I want to know kind of through the brewing process, and maybe even because it is can conditioned, obviously, that going throughout kind of creating this and storing this, and when people buy this, what should the temperature kind of plan be? What temps do you use to try and create some of this stuff? You talked about the long boil, obviously, but because it is, like you say, so complex, I would imagine that it is a little bit sensitive to temperature.
Very much so. And we can condition it because we wanted it to age. This will change. And so the hops that are still kind of fresh right now, it was packaged way back in May.
Yep.
To June, July, August, September. We're past 4 months. Typically, IPAs you want to drink fresh, and you get them, and you want to have that big wallop of hops. We specifically aged it for 4 months to get that kind of, or that aged already done. But if you were to put this in your cellar and keep it in a cellar temperature like 8 to 10 Celsius over like a year and then have it next year, it will taste different in 2 years than it will right now. The hops and maltiness will come up a little bit more. I have a closet full of barley wines that I haven't drank in a very, like, I bought all these things impulsively when I was like young and had money to spend on beer. And now I have this room full of barley wines, and I'm like, I'm never going to drink this 750 milliliter, 12% barley wine on my own. But when you do share them, you realize like these things were designed to last and to change and develop. It's a different experience than just cracking a cold one. But you can have it now and then put one away and then try it again in a year and go like, yeah, that is different. We wanted that experience. We wanted to elevate the beer. It was our 2000s. We wanted to, kind of show off what we could do.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's a show off. It's a flex. If I've ever seen one before from a brewer. The side of the can here says, pouring a dark amber honey, the color entices you into thoughts of sweet malt with flavors of light toasted bread. However, the aromas of aged hops tell a different story. Aromas of subdued orange citrus with hints of marmalade and pine lead the way. While the maltiness fades into the background, the mouthfeel is rich and satisfying while the alcohol is present. It only adds heft to the beer, and it's well hidden. Hoppy without being bitter, malty without being sweet. This well-balanced behemoth is the knowledge accumulation of 2,000 brews here at Sawdust City. Each of those 2,000 brews was a learning experience unto itself. With all the success and all the failures we've made over the past 7 years into the construction of this beer, this may be our first barley wine, but we had 1,999 brews to get it right. Sam, congratulations. I know that this is overdue because it's been out for a little while, but congratulations on the beer, but more so congratulations on the journey to the wonderful 2000th brew, because it's a great creation. It's unique. And again, I say this all the time when we're on these and whenever I'm promoting you guys on our podcast here on CFPs, celebrate things that are unique and different and special. And this fits the bill perfectly. So thank you as always, and cheers. And I hope that you don't go to sleep before 6 p.m.
I'll do my best. Cheers.